Somewhere in Shanxi province, in a small clinic, things aren't looking great. The doctor checks on the elderly man. "Elder, your tumor has gotten worse. How's the headache?" The old man replies, "It's getting worse, but I can still handle it." After a short pause, he looks the doctor in the eyes. "Just be honest with me. How much time do I have left?" The doctor takes a deep breath before saying, "Your inner chi is protecting your blood vessels for now, but soon, the pain will be unbearable. You won't be able to wake up one day, elder." At the door of the clinic, the old man pauses. "I guess there's no need to return for my treatment anymore, Physician Sok. Thank you for everything you've done." As he turns to leave, he adds, "While I'm still alive, you must come to our family for a meal sometime." The physician watches him leave, thinking to himself, "Elder Liu Jinshan, please take care of yourself." Liu Jinshan thinks to himself while walking, "Now I have to start sorting things out. Everything I've built in my entire life, our family, the Liu family, this precious Liu family, will be continued by my son and my grandchildren. I have no regret, however. It's a shame that I won't be able to see my youngest granddaughter grow up, a special child born with the immortal sound body constitution, a talented child who will definitely bring honor to our family when she grows up." Liu Jinshan approaches the Liu house, but a strange, ominous feeling hits him as he nears the gate. His senses sharpen, and the unmistakable smell of blood fills the air. He pushes through the crowd of people murmuring, "What in the world is going on?" "Move aside," he yells, breaking through to see the unimaginable, his family destroyed, bodies scattered everywhere. "Chione, Daekwane," he calls out desperately, his heart pounding. What on earth happened here? His daughter-in-law is lying among the bodies, and he can't hold back the tears. "Open your eyes, please," he whispers, but it's too late. Everyone is gone. "I've lost everything." The bystanders in the crowd begin to whisper, "This is horrible. The Liu family didn't even have any enemies, so why?" "Wait, stop, Elder," someone yells from the crowd. "Elder, you can't. Who's going to avenge your family?" Liu Jinshan, holding a knife to his neck, thinks to himself, "Avenge with this old, sick body? Against whom? It's meaningless." He closes his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek. "I'd rather die now and join my family." Liu Jinshan hears a faint cry nearby and drops the knife in shock. He quickly opens the barrel to find his grandchild crying inside. "Soul!" he yells, rushing to her side. He thinks to himself, "This must be the work of those bastards who wanted to eradicate our family. They will definitely come back when they find out she's still alive." Liu Jinshan hastily entered the manor. Liu Jinshan walks out of the manor, gripping a spear tightly in his hand. He looks around at the gathered people and shouts, "Everyone in Jinyang County, I need your help. Please help me bury my family. I want to do it myself, but I can't stay. With all of you here as witnesses, I swear, before I die, I'll make sure this fire dragon divine spear is soaked in the blood of those bastards who did this to my family. I, Liu Jinshan, won't rest until I do." In his mind, he thinks, "My sons, my daughters-in-law, my grandchildren, I'm so sorry." Liu Jinshan dashes into the forest, his breathing heavy. "It's been decades since I last used my body lightning arts. Every inch of my sick body is screaming, but survival comes first." Suddenly, out of nowhere, an assassin strikes. Jinshan reacts on instinct, leaning back just in time to dodge the blade. An ambush. He's fast, but his movements are simple. I still have a long way to go. Without hesitation, he throws a powerful kick at the assassin's face. "Let's finish this quickly." The assassin flinches, bracing for impact, but when he opens his eyes, Jinshan is on the ground instead. Jinshan grits his teeth. "The sound of my back cracking. As expected, my body can't handle these martial arts anymore. How frustrating. If I were just 10 years younger, this third-rate bastard would already be dead. But right now, Soul's safety is all that matters. If his companions show up, we're done for." With no time to waste, he forces himself up and starts running. The assassin hesitates for a second before snapping out of it and chasing after him. Jinshan yells back, "You bastard! Even as an assassin, do you have no shred of compassion? Is it really necessary to go after a newborn baby and an old man like me?" But in his mind, a plan is already forming. Running away like this is a disadvantage in my condition. If I don't take him out in one move, I'll be the one who suffers. The assassin dashes toward him, a killing intent in his eyes. Jinshan grips his spear tightly. There's only one chance. He channels his remaining energy into his weapon. The assassin leaps into the air, going for the kill. Jinshan's eyes narrow. Got him! With a deep breath, he unleashes Lion's Roar. A powerful shockwave blasts through the air. The assassin wobbles mid-air, his balance shattered. His weapons slip from his hand. Jinshan doesn't waste a second. Liu family spear technique, first technique, pursuing extreme flash. In an instant, his spear tears through the assassin's chest, pinning him straight to a tree. Jinshan scoffs, smacking the assassin's face. Didn't I tell you to stop chasing me, you rude little bastard? The impact knocks off the assassin's mask, revealing his face. Jinshan narrows his eyes. As expected, I don't recognize him, but I need to find out who sent him. He studies the man's trembling body. Not that it matters. Someone like him would rather die than talk. His gaze shifts to the assassin's, a strange dragon tattoo standing out against his bloodied skin. This symbol, if nothing else, this might be a clue. Before he can think further, Soul's soft cries snap him back to reality. Jinshan holds her close and gently whispers, "Our Soul must have been scared, huh? But don't worry, my child. Grandpa will definitely protect you." Soul smiles at him. Night falls, and the forest is wrapped in darkness. Jinshan and Soul sit by a small fire, their only source of warmth. Jinshan looks down at the baby in his arms and sighs. "Child, you must be hungry, right? Just wait a little longer." As he stirs the pot, his thoughts drift. I grabbed some cow's milk and a few supplies from a nearby village in a rush. Who would have thought I'd end up stealing? Something I've never done in my life. Seriously, my later years are truly miserable. Once the milk is ready, he carefully pours it into a small container and brings it to Soul's lips. "Here you go, Soul. It's ready. Since I boiled it, it's safe to drink now." Soul eagerly drinks, and Jinshan watches with a soft smile. "That's it. You're eating so well. Good job." After finishing, Soul rubs her tiny belly cutely. Jinshan chuckles to himself, but his mind remains heavy. There's no helping it. I'll do anything to protect Soul. Suddenly, a sharp, unbearable pain shoots through Jinshan's head. His vision blurs, and the bowl of soup slips from his hands, crashing to the ground. The tumor, "I've never had a headache this bad before." A piercing scream escapes his lips as the agony intensifies. His body trembles, and memories of his conversation with Physician Suok flood his mind. "Elder, please take this, just in case. Didn't you say medicine would no longer work?" "This isn't medicine. It's a poison called the nerve suppression pill. Using poison to fight poison, the pill's toxins will suppress your tumor and prolong your life for now. Just in case of an emergency, please take these with you." Jinshan grits his teeth. "I'm losing my mind. I know what this poison is, a drug used to torture prisoners, causing unbearable pain without killing them. Even a strong martial artist would feel like his entire body is being torn apart." He looks at Soul, her tiny face twisted in distress as she cries louder and louder. "I can't die. I can't leave Seol all alone." With trembling hands, he grabs the pill and swallows it. A violent surge of poison chi erupts inside him. His skin turns purple, his pupils contract, and his veins bulge beneath his skin. The pain is excruciating. He screams, clutching his head, yanking his hair as his body convulses violently. The forest echoes with his agonized cries, piercing through the silent night. Time becomes a blur. Darkness fades into dawn. As the pain slowly subsides, Jinshan lies there, exhausted, staring at the sky. How much time do I even have left? Jinshan lies on the ground, breathing heavily. Luckily, the poison chi seems to have subsided. For now, I'm still alive, but I don't know when my headache will strike again. Even if I survive the poison, there's a limit. I have to stay alive, at least until I can ensure Soul's safety. His eyes shift toward Soul, peacefully sleeping beside him. The sight of her tiny, innocent face strengthens his resolve. He sits up, his expression turning steely with determination. There's only one way. I need a body that can both cure my tumor and protect Seol from danger. Body reconstruction, a forbidden technique that reshapes bones and flesh to create a body perfectly suited for martial arts. He crosses his legs into the lotus position, thinking through the process. To unclog the governor and conception vessels for body reconstruction, I need at least 180 years worth of inner chi, but right now, I only have about 150 years worth. His fists clench. Can this sick, dying body even hold on? If I train, it'll take years. No, even longer than that. With a deep sigh, he pulls his robe tighter around him. Until yesterday, I had no regrets about my life. But now, there's only one thing on my mind. Jinshan gazes at the distant mountains, his eyes filled with unshakable resolve. I, Liu Jinshan, Soul's grandfather, will never die. With that, he rises to his feet and begins his journey toward the mountains. In a small village, Liu Jinshan caught the scent of food drifting from a trio of beggars cooking nearby. Approaching them, he studied their meal with interest. The chubby beggar scowled at the sudden presence of an outsider. Taking note of the knots at their waists, Liu Jinshan quickly assessed their ranks. One was a first-rank disciple, while the other two were second-rank. They belonged to the beggar sect. This wasn't just a chance for food. There was an opportunity to extract some useful information as well. The chubby one looked ready to shout in protest, but was swiftly silenced by the eldest of the three, a bald beggar whose head shone as if freshly polished. With a sharp smack to the younger man's head, he scolded him. As Liu Jinshan settled in, the older beggar suddenly excused himself, claiming he had forgotten the salt. He hurriedly pulled the other two aside, his voice dropping to a whisper. Away from Liu's earshot, he muttered his suspicions. There was no doubt this was Liu Jinshan of the Liu family. Convinced that capturing him would be simple due to his age, he ordered the others to wait for his signal before launching an attack. Returning with a forced smile, the old beggar casually mentioned that the food already had salt in it. Liu Jinshan, patting his belly in satisfaction, agreed that the taste was just right. Seated nearby, Xiao enjoyed the last of the broth, her contented expression deepening their shock. As Liu Jinshan watched her, Liu smirked. He tells them he is feeling a strange satisfaction. Wonders if it was because he had found people connected to those responsible for his children's deaths. One of the beggars stiffened, realizing that Liu had overheard their conversation. Without hesitation, he ordered the others to attack. Two beggars rushed at Liu, but he remained calm. With just a spoon, he blocked their strikes, twisting one of their arms from the recoil. The second beggar attempted a sneak attack from behind, but Liu swiftly threw the spoon, striking him with precision and knocking him unconscious. The leader of the group attacked from above, swinging his staff with full force. Liu countered effortlessly, breaking the weapon on impact before grabbing the man by the neck. Without mercy, he began his interrogation, demanding to know if the beggar sect was behind the attack on his family. His grip tightened as he made it clear that if the truth wasn't revealed, he would make them suffer. One of the remaining beggars panicked and desperately tried to explain. He insisted they had no connection to the ones who destroyed Liu's family. They had only come for the bounty set by the Murim Alliance. To prove it, he pulled out a wanted poster and handed it over. Liu read the words carefully. The poster accused him of destroying his own family and losing his mind after falling into qi deviation. Rage boiled inside him. Without hesitation, he crushed the paper in his fist, his fury growing even stronger. Deep in the mountains, Liu Jinshan sat in meditation, his thoughts clouded with grief and anger. The Murim Alliance had issued a wanted order against him, filled with nothing but lies. But a bigger question haunted him. How were they connected to the destruction of his family? If the Murim Alliance was truly responsible, then his enemy wasn't just a single sect, it was the entire martial world. He exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the massive boulder before him. Even if he devoted 5 years to body reconstruction, it would be no different from trying to topple a mountain with a mere pebble. But if the Murim Alliance was truly behind it, then it didn't matter how long it took. Even if it required 10 million strikes, he would not stop until they were reduced to rubble. With that thought, he drove his fist into the boulder. Cracks spread like lightning across its surface before the massive rock crumbled into dust. And yet, the question still gnawed at him. Why would an alliance that claimed to uphold righteousness commit such an atrocity? Nearby, Xiao sat watching, her round eyes filled with curiosity. He turned to her and handed her a bamboo cup, prompting her to drink. Instead of taking a sip, she suddenly tossed it away. Liu Jinshan's reflexes kicked in, catching it just before the liquid spilled. Sighing, he waved a rabbit skewer in front of her. Instantly, her eyes widened, and a bit of drool escaped. Amused, he teased her with the scent, making her reach for it. If she wanted to eat, she would have to call him Grandpa. Without hesitation, Xiao opened her mouth and spoke the word clearly. Liu Jinshan froze. It was impossible. She was already speaking. His astonishment grew as he realized just how extraordinary she was. Born with the immortal sound and body constitution, she was developing at an unimaginable rate. He decided against giving her meat just yet. Instead, he resolved to find ingredients suitable for her porridge. Under the cover of night, Liu Jinshan entered a small village. He had no idea how far the wanted order had spread, so caution was necessary. Spotting a kind-looking woman, he approached her and asked for food for his child. Moved by Xiao's pitiful state, the woman offered an alternative. She had no food, but she did have breast milk and could feed the child herself. After a moment of hesitation, Liu Jinshan agreed and handed Xiao over. The woman, blushing, requested that he turn around for privacy. Respecting her modesty, he did as asked, thanking her sincerely. However, the silence that followed felt unnatural. A sudden movement caught his attention, and he turned back, only to see the woman sprinting away, shouting about how she was going to be rich. Liu swiftly subdued the woman, restraining her with ease. With one arm holding her in place, he reached for his grandchild, ensuring her safety. As he steadied himself, his eyes caught sight of a wanted poster nearby. His gaze immediately locked onto a wanted poster nailed to a nearby wall. His own face stared back at him, alongside Xiao's. The poster claimed he had kidnapped the child and promised a hefty reward to anyone who returned her to the Murim Alliance. His expression darkened. If this notice had reached even a small village like this, then it was safe to assume it had already spread throughout Shanxi province. It wasn't just martial artists he had to worry about. Now, even commoners would be after them. Nearby, a group of villagers gathered at a notice board, discussing recent events. One of them scoffed, mocking Liu Jinshan's supposed descent into madness. Another spoke of the great Bayek family, who had been found dead overnight, completely wiped out. Liu Jinshan's eyes narrowed. The Bayek family, their clan had been even stronger than his, filled with first-rate martial artists. Yet not a single infant corpse had been found among the dead. Rumors had spread of a figure seen carrying the children away. His gut told him this wasn't a coincidence. The same force that had destroyed his family had now targeted the Bayeks, but who were they and why? His thoughts turned to Xiao. When she was born with the immortal sound and body constitution, the Murim Alliance had sent an elixir to strengthen her qi, calling it a joyous occasion for all of Jianghu. But now, everything was clear. They had known about her potential from the beginning. Their goal had never been to celebrate her birth. They had always intended to take her. A group of beggars appeared, pointing directly at him. Accusations flew, claiming he had stolen from them. Liu Jinshan sighed, regretting that he had let them live earlier. Before he could act, a shadowy figure stepped forward. His voice was cold and sharp, carrying the confidence of a seasoned killer. Declaring himself the best assassin in the region, he made it clear he would be the one to deliver Liu Jinshan to the Murim Alliance. The assassin scanned the surroundings, searching for Liu Jinshan, but he was gone. A massive shadow loomed behind him. In the figure's mind, even if I lose myself, I will kill you, all of you. Liu Jinshan stood there, his skin darkening, his expression twisted with rage, his very presence overwhelming. He was losing control. Then a voice rang in his ears. "Grandpa," it was Xiao's voice. The assassin and the surrounding beggars turned in the direction of the voice, but there was no one there. Confusion flickered in their eyes. Meanwhile, Liu Jinshan snapped out of his fury, his mind clearing just enough to realize what had happened. He had lost control completely. He had almost fallen into qi deviation. If he had seen blood in that moment, he might have become a mindless berserker, exactly as the Murim Alliance intended. Glancing down at his grandchild, his expression softened. He gently ruffled Xiao's hair, a faint smile tugging at his lips. She had saved him without even knowing it. The realization hit hard. The entire world was now hunting them. There was no safe place left. If they wanted to survive, they had to disappear, somewhere no one could ever reach them. 2 months later. Deep within a dense forest, Liu Jinshan finally let out a sigh of relief. Before him stood an old, abandoned house, hidden away from the world. Despite years of neglect, it was surprisingly well preserved, as if waiting for someone to return. Stepping inside, his gaze landed on a jade box sitting on a wooden shelf. With a click, the box opened, revealing a set of finely crafted flying needles. Beside them, a 7-string zither rested in pristine condition. Whoever had lived here was no ordinary person. Night had fallen, and inside the house, Liu Jinshan carefully fed Xiao. A memory surfaced, this brat, the way she ate, just like the youngest when he was little. His thoughts drifted to his daughter-in-law, regret settling in his chest. He should have cherished them more while he had the chance. Xiao looked up at him, noticing his teary eyes. Tilting her head, she mumbled, "Cry," attempting to say crying. Liu Jinshan quickly denied it, standing abruptly. "I forgot to turn off the furnace," he declared before hurrying outside. Once alone, he sighed, rubbing his forehead. Embarrassing. He had shown a pathetic side of himself in front of his granddaughter. Staring into the night sky, he pondered his life. The constant wandering, the thirst for vengeance, was that really the path he wanted? Revenge could wait. Right now, raising Seol to be healthy was all that mattered. Nearby, a group of bandits gathered, discussing recent events. Liu Jinshan, hidden from sight, listened intently. Their leader was furious, scolding his men for failing to eliminate a Wudang sect disciple. A violent conflict was inevitable. More importantly, this mountain was no longer a place to remain unnoticed. One of the bandits suddenly sensed something, calling out to whoever was hiding. Liu Jinshan stepped forward, unbothered by their numbers. With a calm expression, he stated that it was rude to speak to an elder in such a manner. He then advised them to inform their leader that he had moved into a house nearby, and that unless they were prepared for a fight, they should stay away. The bandits sneered, mocking his arrogance. One of them lunged forward, blade in hand, but with a flick of his finger, Liu Jinshan sent the attacker flying, shattering his sword in an instant. Another rushed in, only to find Liu already behind him. A single palm strike sent the man sprawling. The remaining bandits hesitated, but before they could retreat, a massive figure emerged, their vice leader. Unlike the others, this one carried himself like a real fighter. Without hesitation, the vice leader swung his axe. Confident in his own strength, he believed one strike would be enough. Yet, with a single palm strike, Liu Jinshan sent him flying, leaving the rest of the bandits in stunned silence. Repeating his warning, Liu Jinshan ordered them to leave and never return. Some scoffed, unwilling to back down, but before anyone could act, a sharp pain shot through his head. His vision blurred. He swayed but forced himself to remain standing. There was no time for weakness. He had to return home to Seol. Reaching for a pill, he swallowed it without hesitation. A strangled cry escaped him as the effects hit. The bandits whispered among themselves, suspecting he had taken a nerve suppression pill. Seeing his weakened state, they seized the opportunity. Blow after blow rained down. Too exhausted to fight back, Liu Jinshan collapsed, his last conscious thought fixed on Seol. In the darkness, muffled voices surrounded him. The bandits discussed their success, one boasting about how they had subdued him. A sudden slap cut through the air, followed by a pained grunt. The leader's frustration was evident. His men had been careless. As Liu Jinshan's senses returned, he found himself bound in heavy chains, secured to a pole. Panic settled in. How much time had passed? Was Seol safe? A commanding presence entered the scene. A man with a piercing gaze studied him, radiating authority unlike the others. The bandit leader had arrived. Acknowledging his men's rough treatment of the elder, the leader's expression remained unreadable. Meanwhile, Liu Jinshan remained silent, his mind racing with a single question: why had his life been spared? The bandit leader apologized on behalf of his men, but Liu Jinshan had already pieced together the man's intentions. He had no time for their games. Shackled in steel chains, he knew breaking free would require a weapon imbued with internal energy. The bandit leader, feigning regret, remarked that if he had known his elder neighbor was feeling lonely, he would have paid him a visit much sooner. With a deep bow, he expressed his sincerest apologies. Liu Jinshan, unimpressed, signaled that if the man was truly sorry, he should release him first. At the leader's command, one of the battered subordinates scrambled to fetch the key. Before unlocking the restraints, the leader assured Liu Jinshan that he would first remove the chains from his body and then proceed with those on his wrists. However, the moment the chains around Liu Jinshan's legs were loosened, he launched a powerful kick at the bandit leader. Reacting swiftly, the leader blocked the strike, though the sheer force sent him stumbling backward. The overwhelming strength confirmed his suspicions. This old man harbored an immense reservoir of internal energy. Liu Jinshan strained against the remaining chains, attempting to free his bound wrists. Just then, the vice leader, axe in hand, lunged at him, frustrated that the old man refused to stay put. In an instant, Liu Jinshan intercepted the axe with his chains, shattered his bindings, and hurled the vice leader through the door, breaking it in the process. With the vice leader sprawled on the ground, Liu Jinshan used his face as a launch pad, leaping into the air and soaring toward the exit. Outside, the vice leader barked orders for the men to cut Liu Jinshan down. Taking in the overwhelming number of bandits, Liu Jinshan cursed under his breath. One of the men shouted for the archers to fire, and as the bows were drawn, Liu Jinshan realized dodging every arrow would be impossible. Preparing for the worst, he steeled himself to sacrifice an arm if necessary. However, before the archers could loose their arrows, the leader's voice rang out, ordering them to hold their fire. He instructed them to let the old man go. Seizing the opportunity, Liu Jinshan vaulted over the fence and disappeared into the forest. As he sprinted through the trees, only one thought occupied his mind: Seol. He had to reach her. Back at the bandit camp, the leader watched in awe, marveling at Liu Jinshan's mastery of Qinggong. His vice leader, however, was less impressed, fuming over the decision to let the old man escape. He angrily accused Liu Jinshan of being responsible for the men who had recently vanished in the mountains. Before he could say more, the leader cut him off, berating him for making things worse. The fate of the Black Mountain Blade, he warned, now depended on that very old man. Liu Jinshan finally arrived at the old house, his voice echoing through the area as he called out for his granddaughter. Relief washed over him when he saw Xiao running toward him. Without hesitation, he pulled her into a tight embrace, apologizing for leaving her alone. He promised never to do so again. As they held each other, a strange croaking sound interrupted the moment. Liu Jinshan, puzzled, told Xiao to stop making that noise. Only then did he notice the frog in her hands. He stared in disbelief before shaking his head. Of all things she could have caught, a frog, he patted her head, amused at her unexpected talent. Realizing she must be hungry, he suggested they go inside. However, before stepping in, he turned his gaze toward the three bandits he had first encountered. They had been watching everything unfold from the sidelines. Kneeling with their foreheads pressed to the ground, they begged for forgiveness, admitting their grave sin. Liu Jinshan eyed them with disdain. Regardless of their pleas, he knew he could not afford to be entangled with bandits any longer. He commanded them to leave. The leader, however, remained, holding Liu Jinshan's spear. He explained that it had been retrieved from where Liu had collapsed, believing it was an important weapon. The bandit leader then attempted a more diplomatic approach. He pointed out that surviving in the harsh mountains would be difficult, especially with a young granddaughter to care for. Wouldn't it be better, he suggested, if neighbors helped one another? Liu Jinshan saw through the ruse instantly. These bandits had crossed the Wudang sect, and now their fate was as fragile as a candle in the wind. They sought to use him, a martial arts master, to prepare for the inevitable subjugation. His suspicions were confirmed when the leader subtly inquired about his allegiance. Without hesitation, Liu Jinshan made it clear he would not be manipulated. The bandit leader, realizing there was no persuading him, bowed slightly in apology. Before departing, he left behind a bag, claiming it was a gift to make amends. Then, the bandits vanished into the night. Curious, Liu Jinshan inspected the bag, but before he could, Xiao had already buried herself in it, rummaging excitedly. Amused, he waited, wondering what had caught her interest. When she finally emerged, she was holding, of all things, a snake. Before Liu Jinshan could react, the snake lunged. Instinct took over, and he swiftly knocked it away, cursing the bandits for such a twisted joke. No matter how beneficial snake meat was for building resistance, shoving one into a bag was beyond ridiculous. The bandits had left behind actual food as well. Glancing at the provisions, Liu Jinshan had to admit they weren't entirely irredeemable. Time passed in the old house, and the remnants of their meal lay scattered. Fully satisfied for the first time in a while, Liu Jinshan sighed in contentment, stretching out. However, his moment of comfort didn't last. He reminded himself that he could not afford to be idle. Weakened as he was, he had to rebuild his strength before trouble found him again. Settling into a lotus position, he focused on circulating his qi. Achieving complete body reconstruction was imperative, not just for himself, but for Xiao. He had to endure, no matter what. The thought of protecting her and avenging his family pushed him forward. Opening his eyes, he noticed Xiao had mimicked his posture, imitating his meditation. Amused, he acknowledged that starting internal training early was wise. The younger one began, the less turbidity there was in the body, making progress much faster. He placed a hand on her back, aiding her circulation, but as he guided her qi, he felt something extraordinary. Her blood vessels were completely unblocked. Such an absence of obstruction meant her internal energy could accumulate at an unprecedented rate. This was none other than an immortal sound and body. Xiao, however, had already started dozing off mid-meditation. Chuckling to himself, Liu Jinshan decided to push a little further. Using the one heavenly cycle, he guided her qi flow, amazed at her natural ability. Her energy absorption was nearly 20 times that of an average martial artist. At this rate, she would surpass even seasoned warriors. Deciding to let her rest, he carefully laid her down. The Liu family heaven and earth palm technique focused on purity and unyielding spirit, allowing for immense internal energy accumulation. However, its slow progress made it inferior to the techniques of the larger sects, but with Xiao's unique constitution, even that flaw could be negated. Later that night, under the clear sky, Liu Jinshan sat outside, glancing at the jar of liquor the bandits had left. He knew better than to trust them, but the aroma of wild ginseng wine was too tempting. Cooking the snake over an open flame, he indulged in a drink, savoring the taste. It had been too long since he'd enjoyed alcohol. The flavors, the warmth, it reminded him why even rolling in the mud of this world was better than rotting away. However, just as he raised another glass, something caught his eye. A strange white light flickered from the direction of the moon. The sight startled him enough that he nearly spilled his drink. The glowing entity descended toward the ground, moving eerily. Was it a will-o'-the-wisp, or just the effects of alcohol? Drawn by curiosity, he found himself chasing after it, only to discover something straight out of legend. Before him stood a creature spoken of only in hushed whispers, hazy blue fur, glowing eyes, and a sinister aura. It was a blue wolf, a man-eater that had claimed over 1,000 lives across 12 centuries. Liu Jinshan held his breath, watching in horror as it devoured a bandit. If that monster was here, in this very mountain, he faced a dire choice. He could abandon everything and flee with Sial, or he could kill it at all costs. As Liu Jinshan assessed his next move, the blue wolf, sensing his presence behind the bushes, lunged forward with terrifying speed, jaws snapping in an attempt to tear into his flesh. Instinct took over as Liu reacted swiftly, channeling years of training into action. With a decisive motion, he executed the first style of the Liu family's heaven and earth palm, fierce dragon grappling strike. His palm struck the wolf's chin, sending the beast hurtling through the air. Yet the blue wolf was undeterred. Shaking off the blow as if it were nothing, the beast regained its footing almost instantly, already preparing for another attack. Liu's mind raced. Facing a monster like this without his spear put him at a severe disadvantage. And then realization struck. If the wolf wasn't after him, there was only one other target. His heart pounded. The wolf wasn't retreating. It was heading straight for the house. Panic surged through him as he watched the beast sprint toward his home. Without hesitation, he launched himself forward, pushing his body to its limits in a desperate chase. Just before the creature could reach the entrance, he threw himself beneath it and delivered a powerful kick, sending it soaring once more before it slammed into the ground. Not wasting a second, Liu dashed inside and seized his spear. A surge of cold fury coursed through him. The thought of the beast targeting his granddaughter filled him with rage. Emerging onto the rooftop, he locked eyes with the wolf, its glowing blue gaze burning with malice. Neither moved. The tension thickened as both predator and warrior assessed each other. Then, in an unexpected turn, the blue wolf took a step back. Slowly, it retreated into the shadows of the forest. Liu's grip on his spear tightened. Something was wrong. The blue wolf was not a creature known for abandoning its prey. This wasn't a retreat, it was a delay. The battle wasn't over. The wolf would return. A heavy silence fell as Liu considered the situation. If it had been just him, avoiding unnecessary bloodshed would have been the logical choice. But with Sial in danger, leaving wasn't an option. The land they had cultivated, the home they had built, none of it could be abandoned so easily. Then another thought crossed his mind. The Black Mountain Blade bandits would be in danger too. If the wolf was this relentless, it wouldn't stop with just one hunt. With his decision made, Liu set off toward the bandits' hideout. Approaching cautiously, his sharp eyes noticed the broken wooden wall. An ominous quiet lingered in the air. Something was wrong. Stepping through the gap in the wall, he found a grim scene. A lone survivor stood among the fallen, carefully covering the bodies of his comrades. The leader of the Black Mountain Blade bandits, Peng Ho, lifted his head at Liu's arrival. "I knew you'd come eventually," he said, his tone grim. Liu's gaze swept over the carnage. He had come to warn them, but it seemed he was too late. The blue wolf had already struck. That creature had invaded a bandit stronghold and slaughtered its inhabitants, a massacre unlike any typical predator attack. Peng Ho's expression darkened. This wasn't mere hunting. The beast had killed for pleasure. This wasn't a wolf, it was a demon. A troubling realization set in. At this rate, the bandits wouldn't even survive long enough to face the looming threat of the Wudang sect's retaliation. Liu turned to leave, offering a simple warning. Peng Ho, however, called out after him. The conversation quickly turned to Liu's past. His name was on wanted posters, labeled a dangerous fugitive. Yet the bandits showed no interest in turning him in. To them, the so-called madman from the Murim Alliance's records was simply an old warrior protecting his granddaughter. The vice leader, however, spoke up with desperation. They didn't seek help against the Wudang sect. What they wanted was Liu's assistance in dealing with the blue wolf. If they could work together, they might have a chance at survival. And in turn, they could help protect the home Liu had fought to maintain. Liu's gaze sharpened. If the wolf had come from a particular direction, then there was a way to trap it. The bandits would need to mobilize immediately, gathering water, tree branches, and straw bales. Confused, Peng Ho questioned the plan, but Liu's instructions were firm. The preparation had to begin at once. And one more thing, a crucial role had to be assigned. Someone needed to act as bait. Silence fell over the group. Liu's eyes landed on the vice leader. Without hesitation, he pointed. Someone plump, juicy enough that a single bite would burst with flavor. All eyes turned to the vice leader, who, bewildered, pointed at himself. Liu didn't wait for an answer. The plan was already in motion. By nightfall, the trap was set. The vice leader stood near the broken wall, shifting uncomfortably in his role as bait. In the distance, two glowing blue lights emerged from the darkness. The blue wolf had arrived. With forced bravado, the vice leader shouted, challenging the beast. The wolf charged with terrifying speed, but at the last moment the man dodged aside. The beast adjusted midair, but its landing proved disastrous. The ground beneath it collapsed, sending it plummeting into the pit. The archers surrounding the hole loosed their arrows, but the wolf deflected them effortlessly, clawing its way upward. Spears followed, driving the beast back down. Despite the barrage, the wolf's determination remained unbroken. It would escape. It was only a matter of time. Liu's voice cut through the chaos. "Step aside." Leaping into the pit, he brandished his spear. Flames licked along the blade's edge, illuminating the darkness. With deadly precision, Liu and the blue wolf charged at each other, their movements like two unstoppable forces on a collision course. As soon as Liu and the blue wolf clashed, a massive explosion erupted from the ground. Without wasting a moment, Peng Ho commanded the others to seal the pit. The bandits rushed forward, swiftly covering the hole with thick logs. Though the explosion had not been fatal, the blue wolf's body was severely injured. More importantly, trapped within the narrow pit, the beast could only struggle with its front paws at best. Liu confidently defended against its attacks, his spear meeting the desperate swipes of the wolf's claws. The bandits watched anxiously, waiting for the outcome. Silence fell inside the pit. Unable to contain their curiosity, they cautiously removed the logs to peek inside. What they saw left them stunned. Liu sat atop the lifeless blue wolf, his body covered in blood. Without missing a beat, he told them to quit starring and pull him out. With the beast finally slain, the bandits erupted in celebration. Liu, however, found himself lost in thought. It had been a long time since he had felt like this. Memories of his younger days surfaced, but they quickly faded as he returned to the present. Back at the shabby old house, he gazed at Xiao, who was sleeping soundly. A sense of relief washed over him. At least now, they could continue staying in their home. He glanced at the glowing blue gem in his hand, the inner core of the blue wolf, a powerful artifact capable of granting immense inner chi upon absorption. However, it carried a deadly risk. If misused, it could lead to chi deviation or even instant death. Just then, Xiao's voice called out, addressing him as Grandpa. He turned to her, surprised to see her awake. She immediately reached for the glowing core, her curiosity evident. Liu stopped her, warning that it was not something to eat. At that moment, a sharp pain struck his body. His vision blurred as he reached into his sleeve for a nerve suppression pill, quickly swallowing it. However, as he did, the wolf's core slipped from his grasp. A sinking feeling overtook him. The core was dangerous. He had to retrieve it, but before he could act, his body gave out and he lost consciousness. Liu Jinshan woke up sometime later, unsure of how long he had been out. His first thought was the inner core. Frantically, he looked at Xiao. She met his gaze and with a cheerful expression simply said, "Delicious." Panic surged through him. He immediately tried to suppress the core's energy within her, fearing the worst. By all logic, her Danshan should have exploded, taking her life with it, but she remained unharmed. Could it be? Did her unique immortal sound body constitution neutralize the core's toxicity? Even so, if she failed to absorb it completely, it could still kill her. He quickly assisted in circulating her inner chi, guiding it through the proper meridians. The changes in her body were astonishing. The impregnable conception vessel and governing vessel had been unclogged. The toxicity of the core vanished, merging seamlessly with her constitution. True chi radiated from her, and her middle Danshan fully opened. Liu's eyes widened. This wasn't just an increase in chi, it was body reconstruction. A child who had only just been born into this world was now being reborn anew. Xiao's small body levitated, glowing with a green energy so intense that the entire house was bathed in its light. Liu shielded his eyes, unable to comprehend the sheer magnitude of what was happening. When the glow finally faded, Xiao was different. She was still herself, yet something had changed. Liu cautiously extended a hand, asking if she was all right. Before he could even blink, Xiao vanished from sight. Moments later, he spotted her darting across the room at an incredible speed. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. Just days ago, she had barely been able to walk, and now she was running like a seasoned martial artist. Even he, after dedicating his entire life to cultivating inner chi, had never achieved body reconstruction. Yet Xiao had done it first. Liu couldn't help but chuckle, as expected of his granddaughter. Stepping outside, he found a bag of food resting near the house. He recognized the gesture immediately. "Those punks from the Black Mountain Blade brought us meat again," he muttered. "They barely have enough to eat themselves." With a sigh, he decided they should be grateful and enjoy it while they could. As he cooked the meat over a fire, Xiao continued dashing around, her excitement showing no signs of fading. He smiled, amused. The past few days had been eventful, and she was clearly reveling in her newfound abilities. His thoughts shifted. If he remembered correctly, wasn't the Wudang sect's punitive force supposed to arrive soon? His mind wandered back to a conversation he had with Peng Ho. The bandit leader had revealed that they were once soldiers, about 10 years ago. They had deserted, refusing to partake in their superior General Yang Yu's rebellion. Liu had simply responded that they had made their decision based on their beliefs. They weren't at fault for following their conscience. Peng Ho had nodded, explaining that even after hiding in the mountains, they had never harmed civilians. Instead, they only targeted corrupt officials and the merchants who colluded with them. Now, back in the present, Liu wondered, who was he to help them when he had his own problems to worry about? Until he achieved body reconstruction himself, he had no choice but to live cautiously, holding his breath in the shadows. Xiao suddenly ran into him at full speed, causing them both to tumble to the ground. As he looked at her, he realized she had fallen asleep mid-motion. She must have been exhausted. Gazing at her peaceful face, he made a silent vow. Even if it was normal for someone his age to give up on body reconstruction, for Xiao's sake, he would never give up. A sudden shift in the air made him tense. They were here. One of the 9 great sects, one of the great clans. Wudang sect. Just hearing their name filled him with anger. They were a great force within the Muram alliance, the very group suspected of destroying his family. One of the bandits knelt on the ground, defeated, a sword pressed against his neck. The Wudang martial artists demanded to know the location of the bandit hideout, threatening to kill him if he didn't comply. Corpses of his comrades littered the ground, their limbs severed one by one. The bandit refused their offer, choosing death over revealing the location of his base. The martial artist swung his sword, aiming to sever the bandit's hand. However, just as the blade was about to land, a spear shot forward, intercepting the attack with precise timing. Annoyed, the martial artist turned his gaze toward the one who had interfered and demanded, "Who dares to block my strike?" With an air of indifference, Liu simply replied, "I'm just their neighbor."
Don't miss out on more amazing stories. Hit that subscribe button and stay updated with the best recaps every week.